Ethan was playing in the yard when he suddenly heard a voice that sounded just like his father. He ran to the fence and looked through a crack where a piece of wood was missing. He saw his dad, Adam, talking to a woman he had never seen before. Instead of telling it to his mother, Ethan did something way worse. Ethan knew that he should tell his mother. She deserved to know what his father was up to with this previously unknown woman. But Ethan was still not planning on actually doing this. In fact, he had something very different planned. And for that, he needed to get in contact with the woman, which was not at all difficult because, to Ethan's surprise, she actually knew who he was. And when the young boy showed up at her home, she got the shock of her life. He was the last person she expected to see here, but when Ethan told her what he wanted to do, she was immediately on board. She could not believe that such an idea came from somebody that young. But who was this young woman? What was Ethan's father doing with her? And what was Ethan going to do instead of telling his mother? Before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The 4-year-old Ethan never really liked being inside of the house. He always wanted to be out and about, but his mother Eva did not want him to go far unsupervised. So when she was busy, Ethan was only allowed to plan in the garden, something that Ethan deemed very boring. On more than one occasion, Ethan actually tried to escape from the garden and make his way to the nearby forest. But his mother would always get to him shortly after he got out. Because what Ethan did not know was that his parents had set up cameras in the garden so that she could keep an eye on him. Today was one of those days that Ethan was planning on getting out of that tiny garden. His mother was cooking dinner and would probably not be able to pay that much attention to him. He had been able to grab the key to the gate and was ready to make a run for it. But then he heard something. There was a voice right outside of the wooden fence, a voice that sounded extremely familiar to Ethan. It sounded just like the voice of his dad. But that would make no sense as it was the afternoon, and his father would always be working around this time. Ethan was by no means tall enough to peek over the wooden fence and see if it was actually his father. And he also did not dare to open the gate, because if his father were to spot him doing it, he would be in big trouble. But luckily, there was another way. The wooden fence surrounding the small garden was not in the best state. In fact, there was even a plank missing. Ethan could easily look through this, and there was a good chance that the person on the other side of the fence would not see him. He could still hear the familiar voice talking outside of the garden, so Ethan quickly but silently snuck towards the hole in the fence. As he was looking through to find the source of the sound, he quickly spotted the man he expected. The clothing and side profile were unmistakable. That was his father outside of the fence. Ethan was happy to hear him, but also confused. He was never near the house around this time. And that was not the only thing that caught little Ethan off guard a little bit. His father was talking to a woman. She was clearly much younger than he was, but also a lot older than Ethan himself. He had never seen this woman before, so Ethan was pretty sure that she was not one of their neighbors or family friends. Even though Ethan could not understand what they were saying, he did feel very compelled to keep listening. It felt like this was something that he should not be seeing, that nobody should be seeing, in fact. And then the conversation ended even stranger than it started. Almost out of nowhere, his father and the unknown woman gave each other a hug. A very tight hug that felt like it lasted for hours. Ethan had not even seen his father give his mother a hug like that. What the hell was going on here? Both of them left separately. After the hug was done, Ethan expected his father to come to the house again and maybe take the woman with him. But this did not happen at all. His father quickly got back into the car and the woman walked away from the house. And Ethan was left behind with so many questions. What was Ethan supposed to do? He had no idea what just happened, but he felt like it had significance. This was something really important that he had just witnessed without his father knowing. The young boy's first instinct was to tell everything to his mother, but he ended up opting against that. He had no idea what his father had done, and maybe his mother did not know either. And the last thing he wanted to do was get his father into trouble. He liked him a lot more than his mother Ava because he was never that strict with him. But Ethan still wanted answers. Looking through the fence, he saw the woman waiting at the bus stop. Maybe if he followed her, he'd find out where she went. His heart pounded. He had never taken the bus alone and didn't have a ticket, but he decided to take the risk. Sneaking through the garden gate, he hurried to the stop just as the bus arrived. Slipping in through the back entrance, he made it on before the doors closed. The woman sat at the front, unaware of him. He kept his distance, hoping she wouldn't go far. After 15 minutes, she stood up and exited. Ethan quickly followed, not knowing where he was but too focused to care. She walked straight to a house where an older woman greeted her warmly with a kiss on the forehead. Could that be her mother? Reality hit him. He had no plan, no idea where he was, and no way to get home. Panic set in, tears welling in his eyes. The older woman, Mrs. Gallagher, had seen the world from her window for years. Today, she noticed a boy in distress. Stepping outside, she gently asked, "Are you all right?" Ethan hesitated, then let his emotions spill. Mrs. Gallagher welcomed Ethan into her warm, memory-filled home, offering him a seat and a glass of iced tea. As he settled in, the soft sound of the door caught his attention. Nadia appeared, her expression mirroring Ethan's surprise. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" she murmured. The atmosphere shifted, thick with unspoken tension. Mrs. Gallagher, sensing the moment, excused herself. Ethan took a deep breath. "Nadia, I saw you with my dad by our old elm tree." His voice trembled. Nadia hesitated before responding. "I didn't think you'd notice. There's so much I need to explain." Trying to ease his confusion, Nadia suggested, "Let me take you somewhere familiar." "It might help." He nodded, hesitant but hopeful. On the bus, Ethan sat in quiet contemplation. As they neared their destination, he finally spoke. "Why were you with my dad at our tree?" His voice held a note of protectiveness. Nadia sighed. "Ethan, sometimes places and people hold significance for different reasons." As the bus stopped, Nadia turned to him. "Talk to your parents. They have the answers." Ethan hesitated. "What if they get mad?" She gave a reassuring smile. "The truth is worth it." Stepping off the bus, Ethan's home came into view. Nadia squeezed his shoulder. "We'll meet again." He lingered outside, torn between speaking up and staying silent. That evening, the sound of a car in the driveway pulled him from his thoughts. His father greeted him with a tired smile. Summoning courage, Ethan finally spoke. "Dad, I saw you today, with Nadia." His father's expression froze. A heavy silence filled the room before he finally sighed. "I owe you an explanation." Ethan stared into his father's eyes, searching for the truth. "I promise to tell you everything tomorrow," his father said. Though comforting, the promise left Ethan restless. That night, sleep was elusive. His mind replayed the day's events. Nadia, his father's troubled eyes, and the unanswered questions. Morning arrived with an unusual silence in the house. His parents sat at the kitchen table, their faces heavy with anticipation. A knock on the door broke the tension. Nadia stood there, her eyes red-rimmed. "I thought I should be here," she whispered, glancing at Ethan's father. He nodded and let her in. Taking a deep breath, his father finally spoke. "Ethan, Nadia is my daughter, from before I met your mother." Silence filled the room, broken only by Nadia's quiet sobs. "I never meant to keep this from you," he continued. "The past is complicated." His father explained how he and Nadia's mother, Elise, had once been married. "We were young, in love, but life took us in different directions. Nadia was the greatest gift from that time, but I never knew how to bring her into our lives." Ethan turned to his mother. She was pale, shaken by the revelation, but after a deep breath, she met Nadia's eyes with understanding. "Life is full of surprises," she whispered. His father continued. "Elise always wanted Nadia to know you, Ethan. When she passed, Nadia went to live with her grandmother. The pieces fell into place, and Ethan struggled to process it all. The days that followed were filled with emotions, regret, shock, pain, and hope. Slowly, Ethan and Nadia started to bond, sharing stories and realizing their similarities. Both loved old movies, tapped their foot when thinking, and found joy in simple things. One evening, Ethan's parents sat together. "We need to handle this carefully," his father said. "She's our responsibility too." His mother nodded. "We'll take it one day at a time, together." Despite the initial shock, Ethan's mother became a source of support. Sitting with Nadia, she reassured her, "You're not alone. We're here for you." Tears shimmered in Nadia's eyes. Weeks passed and the household adjusted. Conversations about the past blended with plans for the future. Honesty became their foundation. Forgiveness wasn't immediate, but it grew with time. Sunday dinners became a cherished tradition, bringing them together. The scars of the past faded, replaced by the promise of a unified future. One evening, Ethan sat on the porch watching Nadia laugh with their parents. The past month had been a whirlwind. He had gained a sister, unearthed family secrets, and seen the power of love and understanding. Life, he mused, has its way of surprising us. And for that, he was grateful.